All right, so this is our blue ABS filament that came with the Dreamer NX printer, and we had some layer adhesion issues. You can see that crack right there. And we also had some problems with the bridging didn't work, and the embossed text didn't work either. If we look at the one that I printed with PLA, you can see the embossed text is there, and the bridging looks fine. So we're going to raise the bed temperature to try to enhance the adhesion to the bed, and that'll help the first few layers stick. And then we're going to also crank up the extrusion temperature to help the layers stick to each other. So rather than print this whole big giant all-in-one test to start with, I'm going to try a smaller project and see if I can dial in those temperatures without printing this whole long thing until I'm pretty sure it's going to work. All right, so here's the simple project I created in OpenSCAD. It's just a L-shaped object. On the walls, it's got a thin wall and a base. So the thin wall will check for layer cracking between layers, and the base will check for bed adhesion. And there was some printing on the front of the all-in-one test. So I put some recessed text on the front, and I put some embossed text on the base area. So that's our project, and we imported it into Simplify 3D, and we'll check the process settings. So we're using ABS, and the solid layers are set correctly. I had some problems with that at one point. Infill is set at 50% so that the thin walls have enough reinforcement to stick together. That seemed to help. Temperatures, the build platform is 105. I tried 100, but then I had a lot of adhesion problems, so we're not going to use that. And the extruder, the packaging that came with the ABS said 220 to print, but that had those printing problems with the cracking. So other sources on the internet say print at 230, so I'm going to use 230. In our advanced, we need to allow a single extrusion fill to fill in the embossed text on the base. Otherwise, it shows as empty. And the single extrusion walls don't really apply to this project, but on the all-in-one project, if you don't use single extrusion walls, the very thin embossed text doesn't print at all. So the default for these is perimeters only and allow gap fill, but that doesn't do the trick. So, all right, so we're using this profile, and then we need to connect to the printer. And the printer was turned off, so that's why it's missing. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect and reconnect. Okay, so the printer's turned back on. Now, as I showed in my tip video, the Simplify 3D version 4.1 wants to talk to a COM port, which are just kind of a legacy technology for computers these days. The Flashforge Dreamer NX installs as a 3D printer in the device manager. So the trick, though, is to get connected. Is you type in list devices here under the communications tab, and then the USB device shows up, and then it disappears. So the trick is you have to list devices, then quickly click on connect, and then it'll connect properly. Oops, it's error opening selected port. Let's try that again. All right, it's connected now. So now we can minimize this, and we can go ahead and print this project. So we have to click on Begin Printing over USB. So when the Simplify 3D prints a project with the Dreamer NX, it changes the LED color inside the bed when it's heating up to red, which is kind of cool. This project is supposed to take about 53 minutes, so let's come back later and see what happened. This is what the display looks like when things are heating up. This is the LCD screen on the front of the Dreamer NX printer. So it's heating up the platform first, and then it heats up the extruder. All right, everything's heated up, so it's printing out the blob removal line at the front of the bed, and then it's going to start printing the project. So first it prints the outline of the base, and it's going to work from there. All right, we'll come back in a little while and see how it turned out. I printed the outline of the base. Now it's going back and forth to put in the solid layers. There's 3 solid layers on the bottom and 3 on the top. And in between there'll be infill. One of the cool features of Simplify 3D is that as it's printing, it will show you what layer it's at and show you what's going on here. So it's done with the base, and it's starting to print the wall. At least this is what the commands have been sent to the printer. The printer's a little bit behind as a buffer. So it's starting to do the infill for the vertical wall. So it's also got to come over here and do the embossed text. That'll be next. It gives you a good way to monitor what's going on in your project. And as you saw before, to simulate what it'll actually look like when it's done, so you can fix problems like the embossed text wasn't filling in and so forth, or even printing at all. So over here at the printer, we're just finishing up the first layer, finishing up the top of the base, and you heard the fan coming on in the back. So for printing ABS, you want to have an enclosed closed space. So it's got a door in the front that closes. It's got a top that you can put on the top for printing ABS. For printing PLA, you take the top off and leave the door open. And then also it has temperature control inside, so if it gets too hot, then fans on the back of the printer come on and evacuate the air. So the inside of the printer doesn't get too hot. So it's still doing the base, and pretty soon it's going to start on the vertical wall and the embossed text. And over here at Simplify 3D, we can see that the Simplify 3D has sent the first part of the embossed text commands over to the printer. All right, it's doing the infill for the wall. Now it's doing another perimeter, the vertical wall. It's a couple layers of that. That's going to go back. Now it's doing the embossed text on the base area. So it moves back and forth depending on what layer it's at. All right, the print's done, and we've let it cool down for quite a while. For these ABS prints, I've been leaving the top on and opening the door to let them cool off. So it's down close to room temperature, a little bit high. There's our print. It looks pretty good. Might be a little bit of here on this side, but let's try raising the platform up a little bit, and we'll be easier to get it off. So the printer comes with this spatula, like I showed you before, but I've been using this regular paint scraper because it's got a thinner blade on it. So if I go in the corner and wiggle it back and forth, I can get underneath it. Start getting it detached from the front. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Alright, so we had good bed adhesion. The bottom looks clean. No bubbling or anything. And then negative text looks pretty good on the front, and the embossed text looks fine on the base. So on this right side, it's a little bit bulged out slightly, but I would say that's a good print. So I think we've locked in the temperatures for printing this ABS as 230 degrees for the extruder and 105 for the base. So that's it for this build. It's on to the next test.